apologize. I feel like well, I feel like eating and talking. So today's discussion is about being here and what that has to do with self. Now, if the concept of self is to have one's own thoughts and to have identified one's own thoughts as indeed one's own mostly, and even though they're not going to be entirely unique in the, the thoughts that you're going to have as an authentic individual are going to be replicated at least at some point, somewhere in the universality of, from the dawn of time till now. But when you identify them as your own, in my opinion, it gives you a strength. When you know that these are the thoughts that you really believe, know, and love, and it gives you it's like building your own foundation. And so when you try to share that with someone else, maybe not in exactly the terms of like, I'm going to now share myself with you, but if you're trying to be genuine with someone, and this is the topic of, I'll call it iPhone-itis, or the third man, to borrow from Orson Welles, which is actually, it's a great conceptual topic, but the movie has nothing, and the story has nothing to do with what I'm talking about. But the third man being that if you're in a face-to-face conversation with someone who has been or is defining self essentially through their phone, either intentionally or unintentionally, you're gonna run into problems, and you're gonna, at least I've run into problems, and I have been frustrated because I think that I'm sharing a treasure, and someone else doesn't share that. Well, that's not new to me or to anyone, but I think what's new is that now everyone is talking or preparing to talk to someone else at any point in time for any reason. And some of it's conditioned, and some of it's, truly the way people live. I mean, I see people, and this is, again, not to be revolution. I'm not saying this like it's not universal now, but 9 times out of 10 people, when they're driving, are on their phones multiple times. I ride motorbikes, and so I can see down into the dash usually a little bit better than some other folks can. And like they're up like this all the time, and it obviously has safety issues, but and the people I know in my life who are iPhone based, they're on their phones all the time. And it's not that I'm tilting against the windmills of this. It's just that I can't see how that authenticates self. Because self can only be shared with someone who is seeking self, themselves. And so, in addition to the fact that I've observed that this is kind of a hypnotic self-brainwashing, that, for instance, like I'm 50-some years old and I have certain experiences, right? So if I share my actual tangible experiences with someone, like I have lived through this, I know something, like, I don't know, like camping or outdoor related, something, anything, or like something about food. I cook a lot. If I tell someone this tidbit of information, which is relevant to the current discussion, and if they're an iPhone-based person, they don't get it. It's as if I have to like text this person or create a blog or have some I have to share that information via the phone in order for it to have relevance to this person I'm talking to. And it's very frustrating because I'm like, hey, I'm giving you the real dope, this is the real shit. And while we have different opinions of the same facts of life, like the observations of whether it's better to crack pepper in the pan or on the plate, anything, something stupid like that. Not stupid, but relatively meaningless. And it just seems like everyone's asking permission from the phone. A quote expert on the phone, someone else on the phone. And this leads to the thought of, this goes back to self, that if someone is self-aware, they are walking through life as themselves for the most part. And when they meet another self, there's, as I said before, a resonance, like a tuning fork. There's kind of a resonance. It doesn't mean they're best friends. It doesn't mean that they're falling all over themselves. It just means that there's an element of genuineness there, a degree of value. But if someone is always seeking information, affirmation, compliments via the phone, whether there's another person on the other side or not, that is a counterfeit sense of self. And I think it becomes self-perpetuating. I think it perpetuates this concept that if you essentially are building a counterfeit sense of self because you're not sharing your true self with some other true person, then you kind of get hollowed out. And it's kind of like a junk food diet, where it tastes like food, it feels like food, you eat it when you're hungry, but it really doesn't satisfy the true longing and meaning of humanity. And it's not a diss on someone who is iPhone centered. It's an observation that self needs to be shared with other selves in live time, as people talking face to face, or even a phone call in real time. Because the things that are said in real time aren't going to be said via text or, phone or email or whatever. And I'm not talking about the simple things like people saying dumb things online. Or an email, and it sounds great on email, but it's not personal. I'm talking about the interaction of souls that happens face to face, and it's genuine and it's real, and it should happen more frequently, and it helps build self within the person I'm talking to and in with me. Even if that person is a freaking raging a-hole, at least it's a genuinely crappy interaction, but it was genuine. So I feel for the people in my family who are iPhone centered, because it's going to be years if they ever wake up. They may never wake up. There are certain personality types who are just very, I'm one of them, susceptible to persuasion, influence, essentially naive. I'm essentially a naive person. And it just ain't going to happen. So, like, reading a blog about authenticity of self, it's useless unless it points you to putting the phone down and having interaction with someone on some level that is genuine, face to face, live, real time. So, again, my points aren't meant to be earth-shattering. It's just meant to be clear. I mean, I don't think anything I'm sharing is actually original. It's meaningful to me. It's fundamental to me. And I think that recording this hopefully gives inspiration to someone else who is maybe feeling this way or leaning this way or seeking an answer that they've never heard clearly. And then clearly, in short, put down your freaking phone. It's an addiction. It's an addiction. I sold in the addiction market for several years. I'm not saying I'm an expert, but I have an understanding of what I'm talking about. And essentially, everyone's going to flip out when I define addiction, but addiction means that your life has no meaning without this. And if you were to take the iPhone away from most of the people who have iPhones in their lives, I don't know. I think they'd be like, walking in circles and pulling their hair out. And I feel for them because, it's bad. And as someone who seeks genuine self, in the course of my day, coffee store, grocery store, neighbors, friends, relatives, so rare to find someone who is seeking self and can talk in self terms. And I'm not talking about having deep philosophical discussions. I'm talking about food. I'm talking about, chores, taking it easy topics. And dude, we're in trouble as a culture and society because everyone's on their goddamn fucking phone and it's not leading them to the place they need to be. It's just terrible. Excuse me, I'm dribbling out. In the old days, it was the seeking of knowledge that what college was for. I mean, there's some cultural aspects, but it was, you would go to college to learn things you couldn't learn elsewhere, even though ironically you could probably just pick the reading list and just read the course listings and be pretty much ahead of the class. But anyway, but the concept was that you would go to school to be educated, to know things, and to be a better citizen. Well, now with the advent of universal knowledge, as corrupted as it can be, and often is, it still is possible to get my phone and see what Kevin Costner's house is worth in Wyoming, what the GDP of Nigeria is, and what the NASDAQ is doing right now, and 10 seconds later, and 30 seconds later, and you can do online trading and all this stuff. So all these things that used to take effort don't take effort. And we used to lose ourselves or spend, inordinate amounts of time trying to achieve knowledge. But knowledge was always supposed to lead to greater self and greater citizenship, which means the understanding that the search of self and the expression of self is freedom. Personal liberty, personal freedom for me and for those around me. The concept of which can be reflected politically in many ways, but it starts with self. I am a person of meaning and worth. I have meaning and worth as I am and as I translate and express myself. That is the fundamental human dilemma throughout the ages. And in the United States, we have this currently, politically, but like a shell, a matrix of understanding and cultures and laws, it will die and pass away without people understanding what they're doing with their lives. And what you're doing with your life is you are living yourself, and you are sharing yourself with others, and you hope others share themselves with you. Whether that's asking for a cup of sugar from your neighbor, or cutting someone off in traffic, or voting for laws, or making a living and paying the bills. It all should be in the search of self. And that's why I'm very passionate about this, because I think this is a binding philosophy that even if you disagree with me on some points, I think that you can agree that this is a direction and a beneficial and use of energy, I would say, psychic energy. So again, I have no practical tips on how to talk to someone who is lost on their phone. Because like talking to an addicted person, you share words and meanings, but they are not real to this person who is seeking the next hit on their phone. And I'm not talking about the dopamine hit. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about the sense of self. Because that's the real deception of addiction, is that you're always seeking something else, not yourself. And that's the real danger, because someone will fight back to hold on to that addiction. And I've seen that in my personal life, in my family realm, where you just can't separate this person from their phone. You just can't. They have to put it down. It's weird that there's all kinds of laws actually that support. I mean, I don't know. I would support having interventions, phone interventions, and like going to Betty Ford Center for iPhone addiction. But the problem is it's so prevalent. I'm not sure that would work, and I'm not sure that the philosophical underpinnings are ready or are culturally shared. Maybe this discussion will put that forth. Like throwing a stone in the river to start building a bridge. The stone is under the surface of the river. You don't see it, but it's there, and we keep throwing stones to, build a foundation eventually to cross the bridge. Make a bridge across the river. But the fundaments are the first thing, in my opinion, and that is that I'm basically a philosophical guy. So the concept of self is antithetical to the concept of iPhone use incessantly. I don't see how it works. And now I don't want to start some campaign about everyone put your phone down, you're going to be a better person. you have to start with the understanding of self first. Like it's like taking someone and putting them in a rehab center. It may not take if there's no if they don't start the fire of their own soul, because people can, there's a concept in AA, you fake it till you make it. Well, an addict can fake it forever until they hit some wall, or they hit some, they hit the quote hit bottom, and you can hit bottom several times. Like these stories are well documented. My point is saying that it's I'm identifying a social and philosophical problem of humanity. I'm not trying to be original here. I'm not trying to be clever. I'm just saying it as I see it. And I think that this will help anyone who hears it, that at least at this time and space, it was spoken on January 27th, 2023 in Arizona. And, because, hang on, let me chew this. I think that the reason I feel this acutely, because I have people in my life who have disappeared into the iPhone realm. Several people in my life. And it takes literally days for them to unwind and come back. And after interaction of like 3 or 4 days, it's only at the end of the 3 or 4 days when they start to actually get some genuine interaction. And it's usually not phone based. And my meaning of life, one of the things that I really treasure are the genuine moments I share with people. I call them beautiful moments in my private dialogue. And they're usually involving nature, but it doesn't have to be. It could be food, nature, dinner, table, excuse me, dinner on the table. Because in my personal life, I have made a lot of money, spent a lot of money, I've purchased homes, sold homes, had women, not many, just a couple, families, the whole thing. But the real thing that I think I will take to my grave is the beautiful moments, and I seek them out. But you can't share true, genuine moments with people who aren't there. And the iPhone steals that for me and for them. And I've just seen this in many, many cases that I can't even elaborate. But, someone who's been raised on the iPhone, it really does have to go through kind of a detox. And it has to be kind of voluntary. It has to be kind of involuntary. It can be situational. Like, I just drag the people out, there's no cell coverage. That only works for a while. Anyway, I lament that because I think that I'm a generally gregarious kind of person. And I generally make friends relatively easily. But in the past 5 years, we've had the pandemic during this phase. I have just a tiny little handful of friends. And I don't want a whole bunch. I know you want just a couple genuine people. And I found them, but they're very few and very far between. And it wears on me because I find myself as kind of like a prophet of realism, or the merchant of truth, or, I'm not here to lord it over people, or to be pretentious, or to be, so wise, or this or that. I'm here to share these moments, and I'm finding that no one's home. No one's home. And if they are home, they're only home for a second or two, and then, they're picking up their text or something. And it's so weird. It's so weird. I feel like the Charlton Heston character in Omega Man, the old science fiction movie, where I'm just like rolling around in the Cadillac with the streets empty, even though my streets are filled with people. But they're not there. They're not there. There's a certain realism to walking down the street to go to the coffee shop without your phone in your face, and without thinking about what you're going to post or not post, or not thinking about what you read just 10 seconds ago. So that when you meet someone, it has meaning, even if it's fleeting, even if it's, again, I'm not talking about like being besties with people. I just like, there was a quiet beauty to just having a friendly chat with someone on the street that you don't know. And it only happens that when I encounter someone of my age or older, generally, and it's lovely, but it's so rare. And I feel like, well, I feel like I'm living in a zombie nation, and hence it leads me to these discussions where, well, here I am on the top of the mountain talking to a camera, but I still think it needs to be spoken and recorded and posted, hopefully. So someone can walk down the street, get pinged by my face, and then think about a genuine interaction. I don't know. You use the tools you have. I mean, I've thought about getting a loudspeaker and just sitting down on the corner of the street, but I'm pretty sure that that would not be well received. But I've thought about it. I've thought about just sitting, and I sometimes just sit in the park and just watch people, and you know, I mean, just so rare. Anyway, I don't have an answer. I'm just musing. I think the answer is actually to have a discussion on the topic, and for the people to hear this to answer the question themselves. What part of life could be richer and more full without my phone? Or without the third man always taking up the majority of my mind share. You know, when I was in sales, we'd have a pre-call plan, you know, what we wanted to say to the physician, and we'd have like 3 or 4 directions we could go. And it caused, you know, in the back of your mind, you always had this kind of spinning dialogue, you know, kind of like 3 or 4 movie scripts at the same time. And I feel like people are like that now, because there's a subconscious text in your mind that's triggered by just you pick up the phone, and that principle of just distraction is taking up a certain mind share. Now, you might be used to it, you might be able to shuffle it off, but that means that you're less attentive to what you're doing right now. I'm not saying this is going to go away, but if you have a distraction, and then if your course of thought for the day has been determined by something you saw on the phone, well, maybe you're missing out on what you would have found on your own through your own discussion with your own self about your own things. And I don't know, but it's a question that needs to be answered, and I think we should all answer it, again, for ourselves, but not just for ourselves, but to share with other people for the purposes of making us all stronger as humans, really. I think I better go. I think I'm done for the day. All right, take care, anonymous people.